Good afternoon. What a tremendous honor it is here to be among men of faith. Because I'm not here to preach to you, and I'm not here to teach to you, but I'm here to share with you a little bit that I have learned. Now, first and foremost, thank you, Eustace Mead, a great, great man who I met a few years ago, for inviting me to be a part of this here today. And I'm truly, truly honored to have my personal and professional shepherd, Monsignor Michael Mannion, who arranged for this meeting. Now, how many police chiefs you know in America consider their wartime consigliere to be a Monsignor? Monsignor Mike. And as the video said, what a powerful video to be following. Iron sharpens iron. And that's really what we are all about here today. That is what I seek and what I find in people like Eustace and Monsignor Mannion. So let me share with you a little bit of my experiences and some of the things that we have done to prevent mothers and fathers from burying their sons. So most of you know Camden. Camden is the 9 square miles right on the other side of the Ben Franklin Bridge in New Jersey. Now, statistically speaking, it has the highest crime rate. In cities of 50,000 or more, it is the poorest city in the country. It has a per capita income of less than $13,000 a year. A few years ago, the school dropout rate was about 70%. Leads the country in single-parent household percentage at 68%. Now, we talk about the role of man in leadership and to be the protector and provider for their family. Well, I can tell you firsthand the devastation that happens to the family when men don't perform that function. And the subsequent effects that has upon the neighborhood and then the community, which are really the root cause issues that give me the symptom of crime which I'm dealing with. Does that make sense? Understand that? So I started off in the Camden City Police Department, and I came up through the ranks. And as I came up through the ranks in the department, I served in just about every capacity. I worked in narcotics for quite a bit of time. And I locked up a lot of people. For about a period of about 6 or 7 years, I was out on the streets every day. We were running and gunning, locking up drug dealers, putting people in jail. Made so many arrests that for a period of about 8 years, I was the United States government's expert witness for narcotic trafficking trials. All the while, thought I was doing a lot of good. 2007, I had worked my way up through the ranks, and right about the time I then became a captain and then a deputy chief. And now you're a little bit more in a leadership role, policy development making, far less being out in the field. But it was an extremely challenging time within the city and within the department. During this period of time, much like we talk about the failures in leadership upon the family, we went through the transition of having 5 different leaders in 5 years. And that which I saw happen around me in the city that I worked, I saw happening within my own organization. I saw an organization regress into being apathetic, lethargic, and even corrupt. And then one day, I am sitting at deputy chief position. I'm the number 2 position in the organization, and I moved up quickly through the ranks. I was 36 years old. I had 14 years on the job. Had no political connections whatsoever. And I'm thinking I'm in the catbird seat, right? I can sit here for quite some time, and we can try to do some good things. And then one day, the then leadership of the organization quits. They just walk off the job. At the time, the city had been superseded by the state, and our state attorney general had a very, very involved role in what was going on in the organization. I get a phone call then. I look down at my phone, and it says Trenton, New Jersey calling, and as you know, in New Jersey, that's our state capital. I answer the phone, and it's the Attorney General's Chief of Staff. The Attorney General's Chief of Staff says, tomorrow morning, we want you to be in the Attorney General's office, and don't tell anybody you're coming. Now, you can imagine that's not a very comforting feeling, right? I had a sense of what was getting ready to transpire. I didn't tell anybody but for one person, my shepherd. I called Monsignor, and I said, just got this phone call. They want me to come to Trenton tomorrow, and I have a sense of what's going to happen here. He says, well, what do you think? I said, I'm scared. I don't know if I'm ready for this. And he told me, trust God. Trust God. Pray on this, Scott. I did. The next morning I went in, I see the Attorney General, I sit down in front of her, and she says to me, tomorrow I'm announcing you as the police chief of the Camden Police Department. I don't care what you have to do, the body bags stop piling up. Do I make myself clear? I said, yes, General. She says, what are you going to do? I said, well, General, we got a lot of things that need to be done. She said, well, you've got my support in this. You're going to do it. The next day, they drove me down, walked into a room with the elected leaders that were there, and the Attorney General said to the mayor, to the city council, to all the local politicians, this is your police chief. Any questions? And one of them said, yeah, what's his name? The first thing I did was very unpopular. The first thing I did was I took 100 people, a quarter of the organization, that were working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, behind desks. And I pulled them out and had them working nights and weekends and on the street. I had this crazy, crazy notion that if cops worked when and where crime was occurring, we could probably make a difference. Needless to say, with 100 transfers, I did not get any Christmas cards that year. In fact, particularly when you start to change culture and you start to disrupt comfort levels, you get major resistance. I set a record. Within 6 months, I had 8 lawsuits and 100 grievances filed against me. I was sued by young, by old, by black, by white, Hispanic, male, female, didn't matter, and it was great because they all kind of canceled each other out. But I'll never forget, it was my first week on the job, first week as police chief. 14 years. Most of my senior command staff were my boss not too long ago. That did not sit well with them. But I'll never forget, it was August 4th. I was appointed on July 31st. It was August 4th, 2008. And in broad daylight, one drug dealer decides to take out a beef with another drug dealer. And they pull out guns and they start shooting at each other on a crowded street corner in South Camden. And a 4-year-old little boy who hears the gunshots panics, and he runs for his mother's arms. And 5 feet from reaching his mother, a bullet slams into the side of his head and kills him. That little boy's name was Brandon Thompson. And that will live with me forever. But the overwhelming resistance that I was getting within the organization, nothing crystallized to me more the importance of us fulfilling our mission and our role than that in and of itself. And it was during this same time that even friends of mine within the organization who were now not becoming so friendly said to me, Scott, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You can't change anything out there. All these people you've worked with for years, they're hating you because of this. You're getting sued. You're probably going to get ran out of town because of all this. And they said this to me in front of a command staff meeting. I looked at them and I said, you know, I was at a community meeting the other day, and a mother in that meeting asked me, what was I going to do to prevent her from having to bury her son that was next to her? What was I going to do to protect him? And the question I had for my command staff and my supervisors at the time was, how do I look that mother in the eye and tell her I'm doing everything I can to prevent her from burying her children when our cops work better hours than bankers, when they don't get out of their squad cars, when they don't engage not just the negative element, but what about the positive element? Well, May 1st, 2013, we started a new police department. And I transitioned from being the chief of the city police department to the chief of the county police department. And I knew I had one opportunity to really get the culture right. We established a mission that was clear. We established a mission that was memorable. We established a mission so that every member of this organization, if you walked up and said, what is your mission? It's to reduce the number of crime victims and to make people feel safer. And our creed is service before self. And so what I tell all the new officers that come on the job, and the guys that have been on for quite some time is, I know we got rules and regulations that are this thick. And we've got policies and procedures that are this thick. And we thrust you into situations that are generally rapidly unfolding, and you have ambiguous situations and with less than sufficient facts, and we expect you to make split-second decisions, and we want you to be right. Just remember two things. Remember the mission of reducing the number of crime victims and making people feel safe. And if you are doing that in a manner that's consistent with our creed of service before self, I will stand behind you and I will back you regardless of what happens. We went as far as in the state of New Jersey, when you take your oath of office, you take an oath of 53 words. We added an additional 33 words to ours. So every member that comes onto our department swears a solemn oath to the good Lord above that they will put service before self, which means we will subjugate our own needs for others. We even emblazoned it on our badge that sits above our heart as a reminder to not just to the public of our authority, but to ourselves of our responsibilities. But we had a lot of distrust from the community. And in large part for good reason. In large part for good reason. Because it seemed as though the only times we ever interacted with them were either in moments of crisis, when they're picking up the phone and calling 911, or in moments of enforcement, where we're writing them a ticket or making an arrest. And then that becomes the lens through which we view and define each other. Public doesn't want that. They don't need that. Particularly in a community that has a per capita income of less than $13,000 a year. If you're handing out $250 and $500 tickets, that can have a devastating effect. So we knew to build trust, the most important component had to be human contact. Nothing builds trust like human contact. So we took our paddy wagons. You know the paddy wagons, they're the police vans that you load up with prisoners and whenever you have mass arrest and the like. And we took those and we loaded them with cops. And we went driving through some of the most crime-ridden neighborhoods in this country. And we started to kick cops out of the car. 2 on this corner, 1 on that corner, 2 on this corner. And what we said was, Officer Youst, this is your area of responsibility. This is where you're going to exist for the next 12 hours. You got to go to the bathroom? You better make a friend. You want to get something to eat? You better find out who the good cook is. Do not call us for an arrest absent of violent crime, because we're not coming to get you. And to learn from the mistakes that I made in the past, when you look out down that street corner, in that area in which you've been deployed to protect, and if it looks like a 15-year-old kid is out there selling drugs, I know in days of old what we used to do is we tell you to go stand in the shadows and see the criminal activity and then move in and make an arrest. And then we'd pat ourselves on the back. Oh, we got 5 arrests this week, 50 bags, $200 in cash. Let me ask you a question. When a cop makes an arrest, where is he for the next 4 or 5 hours? Back in headquarters processing, right? Instead, let's do something different. I want you to go stand next to the guy. It's very difficult to buy or sell drugs with a uniformed police officer standing next to you. Engage him in conversation. Right? There's pathologies of poverty that have led to this. And I'm not making excuses for it, and I'm not saying legalize it. But there are conditions that led to this. And I got to tell you, folks, in all those years and all those arrests I made, I didn't move the needle a bit. I didn't. And probably the most valuable thing I got was every arrest I made, I interviewed, and I got to know them as a person. And in virtually all but a very, very small group, of the hundreds and hundreds of people that I arrested, I would say to you, but not for the grace of God, there could go I. And so rather than being a part of the problem, how about we be part of the solution? Let's change the dynamic. 9 square miles. We had 175 open-air drug markets at one point in time. We had a murder rate that exceeded that of Honduras. In 9 square miles in 2012, we had a bullet hit a human being once every 32 hours. National media descended upon us. You never even know you were in the United States of America. Parents wouldn't even let their children play, forget outside. Parents wouldn't even let their children play on the first floor of their homes. They'd have to play on the second or in the basement for fear of a bullet coming in through their window. And so what I told the cops that we deployed in these neighborhoods is, I'm going to change your metric of performance as well. I'm not going to gauge your success by the number of tickets you write or number of arrests you make. I'm not. I'm not even going to count them. But I'm going to hold you responsible for when I drive through that neighborhood. I better see little kids riding their bikes out front of their homes and people sitting on their front steps. And I don't care what you got to do to get that. That's what you are going to do. In fact, when we deploy you in these neighborhoods during daylight hours, you're going to go up and down, you're going to knock on the door, and you're going to introduce yourselves to the people that live there. Now, I got to tell you, the first time we were knocking on doors, people, what do you want? It's the police. Go away. No, man, we just want to talk to you for a minute. I don't want to talk to you. Because what did we represent to them? And then finally, we got a couple that opened the doors. And we said to them, that which matters most to you matters most to me. What's been negatively defining your life for years? And we're going to address it. You see, because to get safer, more healthy, productive neighborhoods, it's not all just hugs and kisses and love, right? Sometimes the law does need to be enforced. But we enforce the law with the people and not on the people. Because when the people in that neighborhood tell us that the most pressing issue for them is the loud music, 2 o'clock in the morning, I got to get up at 5, 6, and the radio, boom, 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 I can't sleep. If you guys could just do something about that, that would really, really make the world of a difference for us. So we would start to address those issues. And it would not have the polarizing effect on the community for 2 reasons. One, because that's what mattered most to the community. And 2, in being in an extremely poor city, we instructed our officers that the preferred outcome in a moment of enforcement is a warning. We want you to explain to the people what you're doing and why you're doing it. And we've got systems in place to know whether this is the first time or the 5th time we're telling you this. Now, if it's the 5th, 6th, 7th time, maybe we need to start laying the wood there to get your attention. But if it's the first time, 2nd time, let's build relationships. Well, what do we want here? We don't want $250. We want outcomes. So we really shifted from measuring outputs to outcomes. By doing this, you start to hit tipping points in public safety. Now, let me walk back for 1 second and give you kind of a rule of thumb. 80% of your crime, virtually anywhere in this country, any community, 80% of the crime is committed by about 5% of the population. About 5%. Right? So let's use some round numbers here. You got a community of 100,000. You got about 5,000 people that are committed about 80% of your crime. But of that 5%, of that 5,000, there's another 5%. These are the sociopaths. These are the people for which we build prisons. These are the people who don't have a regard for human life. These are the people that will do whatever they want, whenever they want, because they view themselves to be at the top of the food chain. These are the ungodly folks. These are really the people why we exist. These are the people that even in your most polarized communities, even in the communities that have the greatest amount of mistrust for the police, they still want us to put our undivided attention on those people. And if you, as a law enforcement agency, as the guardians of that neighborhood, and not the warriors, but as the guardians of that neighborhood, if you can identify who that 5% of the 5% is, and you put the full weight of law enforcement upon them, your legitimacy level with the people in that community rises significantly. You see, what frustrates the people in some of your poorest communities is that somebody comes in, they pull out a gun, they fire it off, they hit people, bad things occur, and then they leave. And then what traditionally would we do? We'd come riding in. We weren't there before, but we'd come in afterwards. We'd set up crime tape. We'd then go up and down, knock on doors. How you doing? I want you to tell me what occurred here. I want your full cooperation. By the way, you'll look out your window or door and you probably won't see me again unless something tragic happens again. And I want your full cooperation. And then we'd walk away mad because nobody would cooperate with us, right? Kind of ironic, isn't it? But when we started to build relations with the community and they started to talk to us because they trust us, and we started to police smartly and to go after those individuals, and you fish with a spear and not a net, and you remove those people, the dynamic of neighborhoods change. And then, when the officers are in that area, when they're visible, when people look out that door and they see a cop more than they see a bad guy, that tipping point of public safety starts to get hit. Because they now come out of their homes. They now sit on their front steps. They now allow their children to ride their bicycles in front of their homes. And even in your most challenged crime-ridden neighborhoods in this country, in this city, wherever, there are far more good people than there are bad people. But we have to empower them. And that's what we started to do in the city. And we started to get people coming out of their homes. Now, let me tell you a quick story. We started this about 2.5 years ago. And we went into our Whitman Park section of the neighborhood. Is there anybody from Camden here? Anybody from Camden? Or knows of Camden? Whitman Park. You guys know Whitman Park, right? The old Pollock town. Whitman Park, historically, has been one of our most challenged sections, particularly over the last 10, 15 years. We had this one area, this little 3-4 block area, right off of Lewis Street, right by Morton, that there was a drug gang that controlled and ran the streets with absolute impunity for years. And we fished with a spear and not a net, and we took them out. And we went up and down, and we walked the streets, we knocked on doors, and we got people out of their homes. Things were going good there for a while. And then several months later, in the summer of that year, over the course of a weekend, we had 3 shootings. And the community naturally retracted right back into their homes. And I called my command staff together. I said, man, we've made some great strides in Whitman Park. We can't lose this now. What are we going to do? And at first, our reaction was, well, Chief, we're going to have the strike force team go in there. We're going to have narcotics set up. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Guys, stop. Have we not learned anything thus far? The greatest force multiplier we have is not technology or equipment. It's the people themselves. What can we do to get the people back out of their homes, to suppress the spate of violence that occurred? And what we did was minimal effort, maximum efficiency, and maximum effectiveness. Took $5,000 out of our forfeiture account, which is what we get when we take money from drug dealers. And we called Mr. Softy on the phone, and we got 2 ice cream trucks in there. And we put them on each corner and gave out free ice cream all weekend. Nothing, folks, let me tell you, nothing captures the hearts and minds of people like free chocolate ice cream. And it was far cheaper than overtime. We parked those trucks out there, and had the cops knocking on doors. Now imagine this. I've got my officers with mothers, fathers, and their children, and interacting in ways that we never have before. We suppressed all violent crime in that neighborhood for a period of about 3 months, which is absolutely unheard of. Our gun seizures went through the roof because people were telling us we were starting to be able to get in front of crime instead of reacting to crime. Now I got to tell you, we still have a lot of work to do in that city. But we're making progress. We're having the reclamation of neighborhoods take place. Not through might, but through the resiliency and the empowerment of the people that are there. And I'll close with this. If there's one thing that I've been fortunate enough to learn, in large part from my shepherd over here, it's that when your mission when your mission, whether that mission is to reduce the number of crime victims and make people feel safe, that mission is to be a better father, to address homelessness, or to beat cancer. When your mission can intersect with spirituality and faith, the possibilities are limitless. Thank you for having me here today. God bless you. Thank you, Jesus.